My boyfriend disappeared with my car to look for a job, and I tracked him to a luxury motel with another woman without him knowing. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. I handed over my keys that Wednesday morning without a second thought. My boyfriend needed my luxury sedan for a job interview at some insurance company, and his car had supposedly died the night before. He couldn't risk being late or breaking down halfway there, he said. I remember feeling almost proud, Like finally he was taking his career seriously, finally making moves toward the future we'd been talking about. For months he'd been floating between jobs, always having reasons why positions didn't work out, why employers didn't appreciate his skills, why the timing wasn't quite right. This interview felt different. He'd been excited about it, had spent the previous evening researching the company, talking about growth opportunities and career paths. I'd made him coffee that morning, kissed him goodbye, watched him drive away in my car thinking this was the beginning of something better for us. That was the plan anyway. Wednesday evening came and I didn't hear from him until almost 8 o'clock. The interview had gone incredibly well, he texted, but they'd asked him to stay for an additional session with a senior partner. Could he keep the car overnight? His mechanic couldn't look at his car until Thursday anyway. I said yes, of course, telling him I was proud of him. I took an early train to work Thursday morning, cramped against strangers, breathing recycled air, and told myself it was worth it if it meant he was finally getting his career on track. By Thursday afternoon, the story had evolved. Multiple rounds of interviews, he explained over text. They really liked him, wanted him to meet different department heads, the whole 9 yards. They were fast-tracking him through the process because they needed someone to start soon. I was excited for him, genuinely thrilled. I sent encouraging messages between meetings at work, told him to stay confident, asked what he needed from me. That night, I called him around 9. He sounded tired but happy, told me about the people he'd met, the office space, the benefits package they were discussing. It all sounded so real, so believable. I went to bed that night feeling grateful that he'd finally found his opportunity, already imagining how different our lives would be once he had steady income, once we could plan a real future together. Friday came and went with more updates about meeting senior executives and filling out preliminary paperwork. He sent me a selfie from what he said was the company's executive lounge. All modern furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows, looking professional and happy. I saved that photo, thinking it would be nice to remember this turning point in our lives. I showed it to my coworker over lunch, bragging about how my boyfriend was finally landing the kind of job he deserved. She was happy for me, for us. Friday night, I suggested celebrating over the weekend, maybe going out for a nice dinner when he got back. He said he'd love that, but there was one more thing. Saturday morning, he called, apologetic, but excited. The company wanted to do a retreat, he explained. An exclusive resort where they'd be evaluating the final candidates, all expenses paid. It was essentially a working weekend where they'd assess culture fit and team dynamics. All the final candidates would be there. He had to go. When Saturday rolled around and he mentioned the retreat, I started feeling uneasy. A retreat? For job candidates? That seemed unusual, but what did I know about corporate hiring practices at insurance companies? Maybe this was normal for executive positions. Maybe I was just unfamiliar with how white-collar recruitment worked. He assured me it was standard, that all the final candidates would be there, that it was essentially a working weekend where they'd evaluate culture fit and team dynamics. The company was paying for everything, he said, all very professional. I spent Saturday reorganizing our apartment, doing laundry, meal prepping for the week, normal girlfriend things. I was genuinely excited for this new chapter. I even looked up the insurance company online, read about their expansion plans, imagined him thriving there. Sunday night, I finally pushed back. I needed my car for work Monday morning. I had client meetings scheduled, presentations to give, and the train schedule didn't align with my appointments. His response came through around 11 p.m. Just 2 more days, babe. The final decision meetings are Monday and Tuesday. This opportunity is too big to mess up now. They were offering a 6-figure salary, he said. Benefits that would cover both of us. This was the break we'd been waiting for. Could I please just be patient for 2 more days? He'd rent me a car if I really needed one. He'd pay me back for any inconvenience, but please don't make him look unreliable by leaving early. Please don't sabotage this for us. That last line stung, like I was the problem. Like asking for my own car back after a week was sabotage. But I pushed the feeling down. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe I needed to be more flexible, more understanding. This was important to him. To us. Okay, I texted back. But I really need it Wednesday morning. No exceptions. Thank you, baby. I love you so much. This is going to change everything for us. I couldn't sleep that night. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't name it. Just a gnawing discomfort in my stomach that I kept trying to rationalize away. Monday morning arrived, and I had no car and a 40-minute commute ahead of me. I tried calling him around 7 a.m. No answer. Texted asking for an update. Nothing. By 8 o'clock, I'd missed my usual departure time and was scrambling to figure out alternatives. The train would make me late for my 9:30 meeting. A rideshare would cost $40 each way. I called in sick to work, something I never do, citing a family emergency that technically wasn't a lie if you counted my own mental state as family-related. I sat in my apartment staring at my phone, that uncomfortable feeling from Sunday night growing into something sharper, harder to ignore. That's when I remembered the GPS tracker. The luxury sedan came with a manufacturer's app that showed real-time location, something I'd barely used since buying it 3 years ago. I'd set it up when I first got the car, played around with the features for a few days, then forgotten it existed. Now I opened the app, expecting to see the car somewhere downtown near the insurance company's headquarters, maybe in their parking garage or at a nearby hotel where the candidates were staying. Ocean View Grand Resort, 3 hours away. Parked there since Friday afternoon according to the location history. The name triggered something in my memory. Ocean View. Ocean View. Where had I heard that recently? I opened social media, scrolling back through the past few days, and there it was. A woman he'd mentioned occasionally, someone he'd gone to college with, someone he claimed was just an old friend. Her stories from the weekend showed infinity pools, expensive cocktails with little umbrellas, sunset dinners with candlelight and ocean views, all tagged at Ocean View Grand Resort. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through her posts. Most were generic vacation shots, the kind everyone posts. But then I found it. A photo from Saturday morning, posted to her close friends list that somehow I was still part of. A keychain sitting on white marble, bathed in morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. The caption read, "Best boyfriend in the world surprised me with this romantic getaway." The keychain was leather, burgundy, with brass hardware. I'd had those exact initials engraved on it myself 2 years ago. My initials. My keychain. My car keys. I sat there for probably 20 minutes just staring at that photo, zooming in and out like the details might change if I looked at them differently. They didn't. The engraving was clear as day, as there was no job interview. There never had been. I called my dad. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "Hey, honey, what's..." "Dad." My voice cracked. "Dad, I need help." "What happened? Are you hurt?" "No, He lied. About everything. The job interview, all of it. He's at a resort with another woman. Right now, driving my car." Silence on the other end. Not the awkward kind. The processing kind. "Where are you?" "Home. I don't know what to do." "Do you know where this resort is?" "Yes, 3 hours away. Ocean View." "Okay, listen to me. Take my truck. Keys are in the same place. Go get your car." "Dad, I don't think I should..." "Yes, you should. Go see for yourself. Know the truth. Then come stay with us tonight. Your mom and I will be here." "What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation? Then he can explain it to your face." "But honey, I don't think you're wrong." That was all I needed to hear. The drive to Ocean View took exactly 3 hours and 14 minutes. I know because I watched every minute tick by on the dashboard clock, my mind oscillating between rage and heartbreak and disbelief. My phone kept buzzing with messages from him. Updates about the final interviews, excitement about the job offer that was definitely coming. Each notification made me feel sicker. Around the 2-hour mark, he called. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted to hear him lie one more time. "Hey babe, just finishing up here. They're making their final decision tonight. I think I really got it." "That's great," I said, my voice flat. "You okay?" "You sound weird." "Just tired. Work was rough." "Well, hang in there. By tomorrow we'll be celebrating. I can feel it. This is going to change everything for us." "Yeah, everything." After we hung up, I had to pull over at a rest stop because my hands were shaking so badly. I sat in the truck breathing hard, crying angry tears, wanting to scream. How could someone lie so easily, so casually, with such confidence? When I got back on the road, the anger crystallized into something colder, more focused. I needed to see this with my own eyes. I needed proof that I couldn't rationalize away. The resort was even more impressive in person than in the social media posts. Manicured gardens, ocean views, the kind of place that screamed money I didn't have to spend. A valet in a crisp uniform approached my dad's beat-up truck with barely concealed disdain. "Just parking," I said, waving him off. The guest lot was where I found my sedan, my beautiful car that I'd saved for years to buy. Sitting there in a resort parking lot 3 hours from home while its owner was supposedly at job interviews downtown. Seeing it made everything real. Not a GPS error, not a misunderstanding. Proof. I sat in the truck for a few minutes, gathering courage. Part of me wanted to just drive home, deal with this remotely, avoid the confrontation. But I needed to know, needed to see. The lobby was all marble and floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the Pacific that I was apparently paying for. I spotted them immediately through the glass walls that separated the indoor bar from the pool deck. They were at a table under a large umbrella, completely relaxed. He was leaning back in his chair, sunglasses on, looking content. She was laughing at something he said, touching his arm. The kind of easy intimacy that comes from time, from familiarity. This wasn't new. This was established. This was a relationship. I walked into the bar on shaking legs. The bartender looked up. "What can I get you?" "Wine? Anything. Whatever's open." He poured something red. I took it to a corner table with a perfect view of the pool deck through the glass walls. The bar was nearly empty on a Monday afternoon. Just me, the bartender, and my entire relationship imploding 20 feet away. That's when my 15 minutes of truth began. He had his phone out, and from my angle, I could see he was scrolling through messages. Then he turned the screen toward her, and I heard him laugh. Actually laugh. "Listen to this pathetic shit," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the quiet space. "She's asking when I'm coming home again. 3rd time today. It's like she can't function without me for 5 minutes." The other woman leaned in to read, and her laughter joined his. "Does she really not suspect anything? You've been gone for almost a week." She's too desperate to question anything. I could tell her I'm interviewing to be an astronaut, and she'd believe it if I said it with enough confidence. He swiped to another message, and I watched his face light up with cruel amusement. "Check this out. I told her I need to see a therapist about my commitment issues, and she sent me a list of 15 therapists that take my insurance. With reviews and specialties and everything. Typed it all out herself. That's kind of sad, actually. That's kind of useful, actually. She'd give me her organs if I asked nicely enough. Watch this." He started typing on his phone, and 30 seconds later, mine vibrated in my purse. I pulled it out with hands that had gone completely numb. The message read, "Emergency at the retreat. They need a deposit for next week's orientation, and my card got declined. Can you send $500 to my account? I'm so embarrassed. They're waiting, and I don't want to look unreliable." I sat there staring at the message while listening to him say, "Give it like 5 minutes. She'll send it without even asking a question." The other woman looked impressed. "You're terrible. What else have you gotten away with?" What followed was 15 minutes of the most detailed confession I've ever heard. He talked about using my rewards points to book flights, transferring miles from my account using my login information that he'd saved when I let him use my laptop. He mentioned charging dinners to my credit card when I was working late, buying clothes at stores I'd never been to, filling up on gas while I was out of town. The other woman asked if I ever noticed, and he said, "She's too busy trying to make me happy to pay attention to details. Plus, I'm smart about it. Small amounts, spread out over time, nothing that would trigger an alert or make her suspicious. What if she figures it out? She won't. And if she does, I'll just tell her it was for us. For our future, she'll rationalize it somehow. That's what she does. She rationalizes everything because facing the truth would mean admitting she wasted 2 years on someone who thinks she's a walking ATM." The other woman raised her glass. "To stupid people with money." He clinked his glass against hers. "To being too smart to be one of them." I had my phone under the bar the entire time, recording every word. 15 minutes and 42 seconds of crystal clear audio. Every confession, every laugh, every casual admission of fraud and manipulation. When they finally got up to head back inside, probably to their room that I'd unknowingly paid for, I left cash on the bar and walked out. The drive home felt different than the drive there. The rage was still present, but it had crystallized into something colder, sharper, more focused. I had evidence now. Not suspicions, not theories, not paranoia. Evidence. Tuesday became my day of methodical preparation. I called in sick to work again, and this time I meant it. I was sick with anger and betrayal and something else I couldn't quite name. Determination, maybe. I spent the entire day gathering documents, bank statements going back 10 months, credit card bills, receipts I'd saved, gas station charges, restaurant bills, movie tickets, online purchases. I spread everything across my dining table in chronological order, and patterns emerged that I'd overlooked before. Dinner at an expensive steakhouse on a Tuesday night in March when I'd been working until 9 p.m. He'd come home full and happy, said he'd grabbed fast food. 2 movie tickets charged to my card on a Wednesday afternoon in April when I'd been at a conference 2 states away. He'd told me he spent that day applying for jobs online. Charges at a men's clothing store I'd never visited. Gas purchases showing my card being used when I knew exactly where my physical card had been. In my wallet. With me, hours away. It wasn't just the money. It was the systematic nature of it. The planning. The casual way he'd woven lies into everyday conversation, creating an entire false narrative while draining my accounts behind my back. I even drove past his apartment complex that afternoon and saw his car parked there. Perfectly fine, no mechanical issues. The broken car had been just another lie in a tower of lies. Wednesday night, he came home around 8 p.m., all smiles and energy, still driving my sedan. He'd gotten the job, he announced. They'd called that afternoon with an offer, wanted him to start the following Monday. Amazing salary, incredible benefits, everything we'd been hoping for. He wanted to celebrate at his favorite steakhouse. Ironic, considering how many times he'd already celebrated there on my dime without telling me. Actually, we need to talk, I said. Can you sit down? His face changed. That's the only way to describe it. Like a mask slipping just for a second before he rearranged his features into concerned confusion. What's wrong? You look upset. Just sit down, please. He sat across from me at the dining table, and his eyes moved across the documents I'd laid out. Every receipt, every statement, every charge. 10 months of financial evidence organized into neat piles with dates and amounts highlighted. What is all this? This is every time you've used my cards without permission. Every charge I didn't make. Every transaction that didn't make sense. 10 months of theft. Adding up to $4,867. He started to speak and I held up my hand. Let me finish. Initially, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe these were legitimate expenses we'd discussed and I'd forgotten. Maybe I was being paranoid. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. Then I heard this. I pressed play on the recording from the resort. His own voice filled my apartment, crystal clear, detailing exactly how he'd been stealing from me, laughing about it with his girlfriend. The actual girlfriend, apparently, while I'd been playing the role of the financially useful side piece without even knowing it. I watched the color drain from his face as he listened to himself confess to fraud. When the recording ended with him and the other woman toasting to stupid people with money, the silence in my apartment was deafening. That's not... You can't... That was taken out of context. His voice was small, uncertain. Nothing like the confident cruelty on the recording. What context makes that okay? She was pressuring me to talk bad about you. I was just saying what she wanted to hear. I didn't mean any of it. You know how I feel about you? This is just some stupid misunderstanding blown out of proportion. I let the silence stretch between us, watching him scramble mentally for better explanations. His eyes darted between the documents on the table and my face, calculating which approach might work. I was going to pay it back, he finally said, with my first paycheck from the new job. That's why I didn't tell you. I wanted it to be a surprise. I was going to transfer everything back with interest and explain that I'd borrowed it temporarily to cover expenses while job hunting. You know how tight money's been for me. You don't have a new job. You never had an interview. You spent the last week at a resort with your actual girlfriend, using my car and my money. His face cycled through emotions rapidly. Shock that I knew, anger at being caught, fear about consequences, and then, surprisingly, defiance. Okay, fine. I was at the resort. But it wasn't what you think. She's not my girlfriend. She's just someone I've been seeing casually. You and I, we're the real relationship. This other thing, it doesn't mean anything. Casually? For how long? I don't know, a few months maybe. It's not serious. The recording from Monday was very serious. You called me pathetic. You said I was too stupid to notice you stealing from me. You toasted to stupid people with money while talking about me. The explanations came faster then, each one contradicting the last. He'd been confused about dates. He had definitely done interviews, just not at the times he'd said. The retreat was real, just not official. The woman in the recording wasn't his girlfriend, just someone he was pretending to date to make me jealous so I'd appreciate him more. The stealing wasn't really stealing because we were in a relationship and couples share resources. He'd always intended to pay it back. On and on until the lies piled so high even he seemed to lose track of which version he was defending. I sat there watching this performance, marveling at how many different stories one person could construct in 15 minutes. How easily the lies came. How quickly he could pivot from one explanation to another without ever admitting basic truth. This was practiced. This was a skill he'd honed over time, probably on other people before me. Around 10 p.m., he switched tactics. The anger dissolved into sorrow. Real tears appeared. His voice broke. His whole body language changed. He'd made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But he loved me, couldn't imagine life without me, would do anything to fix this. The thought of losing me was unbearable. He'd been so scared about his financial situation that he'd made terrible decisions. But it came from a place of fear, not malice. He needed help, professional help, and he was ready to get it if I'd just give him a chance. "I'll go to therapy," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Individual therapy, couples counseling, whatever you need. I'll get a job, a real one, and pay back every penny with interest. I'll be completely transparent about everything. Just please don't throw away what we have over money and a stupid comment made to impress someone who doesn't matter. 2 years, babe. 2 years of us. That has to count for something." When that didn't visibly move me, he tried a different approach. Vulnerability mixed with logic. He was sorry, so sorry. But also, wasn't I partially responsible? Hadn't I made it too easy by sharing passwords? By not monitoring my accounts more carefully? By being so trusting? Wasn't there something to be said about the fact that I'd enabled this behavior by not setting better boundaries? He was asking in a way that sounded like genuine curiosity, like he really wanted to understand where he'd gone wrong, but the subtext was clear. You helped create this situation. By midnight, when vulnerability and logic hadn't worked, he pivoted again. How dare I track his location like some kind of stalker? How dare I record him without consent? That was probably illegal. I could get in trouble for that. How dare I not trust him enough to communicate my concerns before jumping to conclusions? I was controlling, paranoid, clearly had serious issues with abandonment and trust that I needed to address in therapy. Had I considered that maybe this whole situation was a reflection of my own insecurities? That maybe if I'd been more confident in the relationship, more secure in myself, none of this would have happened. "You're gaslighting me," I said quietly. "You're literally trying to make me think I'm the problem here. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about the dynamics in this relationship. But you're so focused on being the victim that you can't see your own role in this." The argument escalated from there, his voice getting louder, my responses getting shorter and colder. He paced the apartment, gesticulating wildly, spinning elaborate theories about relationship psychology and trust issues, and how modern couples navigate financial boundaries. I sat at the dining table, unmoved, watching someone I'd loved transform into a stranger performing desperation. Around 2 in the morning, exhausted from hours of cycling through excuses, he finally dropped the pretense. His shoulders slumped, his voice went flat, and he looked at me with something approaching honesty for the first time all night. "Fine. You want the truth? I did use your cards. I did spend your money. You know why? Because you were so desperate for someone to love you that you made it easy. You think I'm the bad guy here? Look at yourself. You gave me your passwords, your card numbers, your complete trust without me earning any of it. You were so grateful that someone was paying attention to you that you didn't ask questions, didn't set boundaries, didn't protect yourself. This is as much your fault as mine." The words hung in the air between us, sharp and clear and finally honest. "Give me my car keys. We'll talk about the car tomorrow when everyone's calmer." Give me my car keys right now. Or I'm calling the police. He actually laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. And tell them what? That your boyfriend borrowed your car? That you gave him permission and now you changed your mind? That's not a crime. No, but fraud is. Identity theft is. Stealing credit card information is. Want to see if they agree with your interpretation? His laughter stopped. The mask dropped completely, and what I saw underneath was ugly. Pure calculation. He was weighing options, considering consequences, deciding how much damage he could do on his way out. He reached into his pocket, pulled out my keychain, the one with my initials engraved in the leather, and threw it on the table hard enough that it skidded across the surface and onto the floor with a metallic clink. Then he started gathering his things, throwing clothes into a bag with aggressive movements designed to intimidate. "You're going to regret this," he said from the doorway, holding my actual car keys in his hand, the ones with the electronic fob. The keychain he'd thrown had been a decoy, old keys that didn't matter. When you're alone and miserable, remember that you did this to yourself. Remember that you destroyed the best thing that ever happened to you over some money and your own paranoia. He left at 5 in the morning, slamming the door hard enough to wake my neighbors. And he took my car keys with him, leaving in my sedan like he had every right to it. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Wednesday became Thursday in that strange twilight state where you're too wired to rest but too exhausted to function. Around 10 a.m. Thursday, I called my dad and told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said simply, "Get dressed. We're going to the police station." Thursday afternoon, I went to the police station with my dad. He'd called that morning suggesting we go together, his way of offering support without being overbearing about it. He worked maintenance for the department fleet and knew half the officers by name, which helped. But mainly I think they took it seriously because I had documentation. Real documentation. Not just a he said, she said domestic dispute, but actual evidence of systematic fraud. The officer who took my report was a woman in her 40s named Officer Martinez, who'd apparently dealt with similar cases before. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of person who'd heard every excuse and manipulation tactic imaginable and wasn't impressed by any of them. "Let me make sure I understand the timeline," she said, typing notes into her computer. "You gave him permission to borrow your vehicle on Wednesday for a stated purpose, a job interview. He claimed he needed it for progressively longer periods with increasingly elaborate excuses. When you explicitly demanded its return on Monday and he refused, citing the same false reasons, that's when the unlawful use potentially begins. He still has it. The keys he threw at me were to his apartment. Not my car." She nodded, unsurprised. "That's what I thought. The car issue is tricky from a legal standpoint. You gave him permission to use it initially, which muddies the waters. But when you explicitly asked for it back and he refused, especially given that his stated reasons for needing it were fraudulent, that potentially becomes unlawful use of a vehicle. Combined with the financial fraud you've documented, we have enough for a report. Let's go through the financial evidence." What followed was 2 hours of methodical documentation. Every unauthorized charge, every timeline inconsistency, every provable lie. Officer Martinez asked detailed questions about each transaction, about when I'd discovered it, about what explanations he'd given, if any. She made copies of all my documents, labeled and organized them by category: restaurant charges, gas purchases, online transactions, cash withdrawals. When we got to the recording from the resort, she listened to the entire 15 minutes and 42 seconds without interruption, her expression growing progressively grimmer. When his voice came through describing me as too stupid to notice the theft, she shook her head slightly. "This is damning," she said when it finished. "This isn't someone who made an impulsive mistake. This is calculated, premeditated fraud. The fact that he's discussing techniques for avoiding detection, bragging about specific methods of stealing from you, that shows clear intent and planning. What happens next? We file the report officially. I'm going to forward this to our Financial Crimes Division because the scope of the fraud goes beyond simple unauthorized use. The credit card information in his wallet. You said you saw written numbers? The detective who called me this morning mentioned they found papers with my card numbers written on them during a search. That changes everything. That transforms this from a domestic dispute about money into evidence of identity theft and fraud. Those papers prove this wasn't casual or impulsive. He literally wrote down your financial information to use without your knowledge or consent. That's a felony. My dad, who'd been sitting quietly next to me the entire time, spoke up. What kind of timeline are we looking at for charges? Given the evidence, I'd expect movement within 48 to 72 hours. We'll need to locate him first, obviously, but the documented refusal to return the vehicle gives us grounds for immediate action. If he continues to possess the vehicle after being formally notified to return it, we can escalate to theft charges. She walked me through the rest of the process, explaining what would happen next, what I should expect, what my rights were as the victim. The word victim felt strange. I'd spent 2 years thinking of myself as his girlfriend, his partner, his support system. Reframing the entire relationship as victimization required a mental shift I wasn't quite ready to make yet. By the time we finished, it was nearly 7 p.m. My dad took me to dinner at a quiet diner where we didn't have to talk much. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. You did the right thing coming here. I keep wondering if I should have just let it go. Moved on. He stole from you for a year. He planned it. That's not something you let go. He paid the check and dropped me off with a simple, call if you need anything. No lecture, no judgment, just support. The days that followed were a blur of waiting and second-guessing. Work felt impossible to focus on. Every time my phone rang, my heart would jump. Was it the police? Was it him? Was it his family? 3 weeks later, Detective Harrison called. We found him, and we found something else. When I got to the station, he laid out photographs on his desk. Small slips of paper covered in handwriting. My credit card numbers, all 3 of them. Security codes. Expiration dates. Even my online banking password. These were in his wallet, behind his driver's license. He was carrying your financial information on him. I stared at the photos, feeling sick. He wrote them down. This changes everything. This isn't a boyfriend who made bad choices. This is someone who planned to defraud you. Over the next several weeks, they dug deeper. His phone revealed photos of my actual credit cards taken while I slept, screenshots of my accounts, text messages with the other woman going back over a year, discussing their relationship and his plans to find someone with money. The worst discovery came from messages dated months before we even met. Him and her planning it all, discussing how to find someone vulnerable, how long he could maintain the lie, how much he could take before I'd notice. You weren't his girlfriend, Detective Harrison said when he showed me the messages. You were the target from day one. I sat in that police station office and felt something inside me break in a way I hadn't expected. Not heartbreak. That had already happened. This was different. This was the death of the story I'd been telling myself about who I was, about my judgment, about my worth. I need to see them, I said quietly. The messages. You don't have to. I need to see them. He pulled up the text thread on his computer and turned the screen toward me. Message after message between him and her, dated 2 months before he and I ever met. Planning, strategizing, shopping for a mark. Her. Found anyone promising? Him. Few possibilities. There's this girl at the coffee shop who always pays for everyone's drinks. Seems lonely. Always alone with her laptop. Her. Financial situation? Him. Works in tech. Nice car. Lives alone in a good area. No ring, no obvious boyfriend from what I can tell. Checks all the boxes. That coffee shop was where we'd randomly met, where he'd accidentally spilled his coffee and I'd laughed and offered to buy him another. Our cute meet story, our beginning, it had all been planned. I went home that day and threw up. Then I called my best friend. Hey, I was just thinking about, he targeted me. My voice didn't sound like my own. From the beginning. Before he even talked to me. He chose me because I looked vulnerable and had money. What? Slow down. What happened? I told her everything. The resort, the recording, the police investigation, the messages planning it all. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, I heard her crying. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I should have said something. Said what? I didn't like him, I never liked him, but you seemed happy, so I kept my mouth shut. I should have told you my gut was screaming that something was off. It wouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't have listened. Can I come over? Not tonight. I need to be alone. But the alone was crushing. I sat in my apartment looking at everything through new eyes. The couch where we'd watched movies. Had he ever actually enjoyed any of them, or was it all performance? The kitchen where I'd made him dinner countless times. Had he ever appreciated it, or just seen it as further proof I was an easy mark? the bed where we'd slept together. Had he ever felt anything real, or was it just part of the job? I called my mom the next day. "Honey, your dad told me some of what's happening. How are you?" I started crying. Couldn't stop. She waited. "Mom, how did I not see it? How was I so stupid?" "You weren't stupid. You were human. You trusted someone you cared about. That's not stupidity. That's how relationships are supposed to work. But the signs... Hindsight isn't evidence of failure. You didn't see the signs because people who do this are good at hiding them. That's their skill. That's how they get away with it." I feel like such an idiot. I know, but you're not. You're someone who got targeted by someone who does this professionally. It's not your fault. I wanted to believe her. But sitting in my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a fake relationship, it was hard not to feel complicit in my own con. The arraignment happened months later. He pleaded not guilty, claimed everything was a misunderstanding. His family couldn't make bail, so he stayed in custody. That's when they started calling me. His mother, his sister, numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored most of them until one afternoon his mother and sister just showed up at a coffee shop near my apartment. "We need to talk," his mother said, looking exhausted. I should have walked away, but I was curious what they'd say. His mother did most of the talking at first. How shocked they were. How he'd never done anything like this before. How they wanted to make it right. Then the sister cut to the chase. "We'll pay you double what he took right now if you drop the charges." "Why would I do that?" "Because prison will destroy his life," his mother said, leaning forward. "He'll never recover from this. We can fix this privately. He'll get help. Pay you back. You don't need to ruin him." He ruined himself when he spent over a year stealing from me. The sister's face hardened. "You recorded him illegally. Our lawyer says that recording won't hold up in court, and we'll sue you for illegal surveillance if you push this." I'd researched this already. The resort has security notices posted everywhere. No expectation of privacy. But your lawyer can try. They left after that. After E. The mother crying, the sister angry. I sat there wondering if I was being vindictive. Then I remembered his voice on that recording, calling me stupid, laughing about how easy I was to manipulate. No, I wasn't being vindictive. I was making sure he couldn't do this to someone else. The next day, the sister came back alone. She looked different, defeated. "He's done this before," she said quietly. "Our grandmother, a college roommate. My parents always paid people off, covered for him. I thought he'd changed, but he hasn't. He won't, unless something actually stops him." She left me her number in case I needed family history for the trial, then walked out. I called Detective Harrison. "I'm not dropping the charges." "Good," he said, "because we found enough evidence to prosecute 3 times over." The trial happened 6 weeks later, 3 days that felt both endless and too fast. The prosecutor laid everything out methodically. The timeline, the stolen money, the written card numbers, the text messages, planning it all. But the moment that changed everything was when she played the recording. His voice filled that courtroom. Confident, cruel, casual. She's too desperate to question anything. I could tell her I'm interviewing to be an astronaut and she'd believe it. The jury's faces changed as they listened. Disgust, anger, recognition. She'd give me her organs if I asked nicely enough. Watch this. Then the sound of him texting, followed by my phone notification. The message asking for $500. His laughter. "Give it like 5 minutes. She'll send it without even asking a question." When the recording got to the part where he called me stupid, where they toasted to stupid people with money, I saw one juror's jaw clench. An older woman in the back row shook her head, like she'd seen this story play out before in her own life. The other woman testified next, looking uncomfortable. She confirmed their relationship had lasted over 2 years, that she'd known about me but believed I was just casual, that she'd had no idea the resort weekend was funded by theft. "Did you know where the money came from?" the prosecutor asked. He said he got a signing bonus, $10,000. I believed him. My bank representative testified about the pattern of fraud. Small amounts at first, gradually increasing. Classic predatory behavior. The defense lawyer tried arguing that couples share finances, that this was all consensual, that I was just a vindictive ex. But the written card numbers destroyed that argument. The photos of my actual cards. The messages planning it all before we even met. He never testified. His lawyer advised against it, so I never got to hear him try to explain it under oath. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the 4 women read each verdict in a clear, firm voice. Guilty, 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 guilty. I watched his shoulders hunch with each word, watched reality finally hit him. At sentencing, the judge looked at him for a long moment before speaking. This was calculated, premeditated fraud, not an impulsive mistake, a systematic exploitation of trust. The harm wasn't just financial, it was psychological and emotional. This court takes these matters seriously. 2 years in prison. Eligible for parole after 8 months. Full restitution with interest. 5 years probation, permanent no-contact order. He stood there as she read the sentence, his face blank. I wondered if he finally understood that charm and manipulation couldn't save him this time. After the sentencing, I expected to feel relief or closure. Instead, I mostly felt tired, empty, like I'd been running on adrenaline for months and it had finally run out. My friend took me out to dinner that night, not to celebrate, just to sit with me. "How do you feel?" she asked. "I don't know. Shouldn't I feel victorious? Like justice was served? There's no should. You feel however you feel." I feel sad, which is stupid because he's the one who did this. He's the one who deserves to feel sad, but here I am feeling like I lost something. You did lose something. You lost the person you thought he was. That's worth grieving even if that person never really existed. I started crying in the middle of the restaurant. She just held my hand and let me. The restitution payments started arriving the following month. Small amounts deducted from his prison wages. I put the money in a separate account and couldn't look at it. It felt wrong. Not like justice. Like a constant reminder of how much I'd lost that couldn't be measured in dollars. My therapist, because yes, I started seeing a therapist, had thoughts about that. You're treating the money like it's tainted. Like accepting it means accepting what happened. Isn't it tainted? It's restitution. It's acknowledgement of harm done. Refusing to engage with it doesn't make the harm go away. It just leaves you carrying both the harm and the refusal. I don't know how to stop feeling stupid. What if you weren't stupid? What if you were targeted by someone skilled at manipulation and you responded exactly the way any human being with a capacity for trust would respond? But the signs were hidden by someone practiced at hiding them. You keep looking back with the knowledge you have now and judging your past self for not knowing it then. That's not fair. That's not even logical. It took months of therapy before I could look at the situation without immediately spiraling into self-blame. Months of unpacking every interaction, every red flag I'd rationalized away, every moment I'd chosen to trust instead of doubt. Slowly, painfully, I started to understand that trust isn't stupidity, that wanting to believe the best in someone isn't weakness, that being vulnerable enough to love someone doesn't make you responsible when they exploit that vulnerability. But understanding it intellectually and feeling it emotionally were different things. 3 months after sentencing, I got a message through the court system. He'd tried to send me a letter. The preview showed the first lines. "You destroyed everything we could have had together. You chose revenge over love." I brought it to therapy. "Do you want to read it?" my therapist asked. Part of me does. Part of me wants to know what he has to say now that he's faced consequences. But mostly I think reading it would just drag me back into his version of reality. What's his version of reality? That I'm the villain, that he's the victim, that if I'd just been more understanding, more forgiving, none of this would have happened. And what's your version? That I protected myself, that I stopped someone from hurting me further, that I chose my own well-being over his comfort. Which version feels true? Mine. Finally. Mine. I declined to receive the full letter. 6 months after sentencing, his sister called. "He's up for parole review. He asked me to contact you about supporting early release." And I told him no, but I wanted to warn you in case he tries other channels. "How is he? Still blaming you. Still hasn't taken responsibility for anything." She paused. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For what he did. For what my family enabled. Thank you for telling me. I didn't participate in the parole process. Whether he got out in 8 months or 2 years wasn't my decision to make. He was released after 10 months. The victim services coordinator called to notify me, reminding me the no-contact order was still in effect. They asked if I had safety concerns. "No," I said. "He's taken enough. I'm not giving him my fear, too. Living in the same city where all of this happened has been strange. Sometimes I see places we went together and feel that sick stomach drop. The coffee shop where he'd invent stories about job applications. The park where he'd text her while walking with me. The grocery store where he'd suggest expensive items, then charge them to my card. My best friend came with me one day when I ran into him unexpectedly at that grocery store. Or rather, I saw him first and froze completely. That's him, I whispered. She looked. He was in the produce section, looking at his phone, oblivious. Same person, different context. He looked smaller somehow, more ordinary, less like the monster in my nightmares, and more like a sad man buying vegetables. Do you want to leave? She asked. No, I was here first. I'm not leaving. We finished our shopping. He never even looked up. When we got to the car, I started shaking. You okay? Yeah. Actually, yeah. I thought seeing him would break me, but he's just a person. He's not this huge thing hanging over my life anymore. He's just some guy buying groceries who made terrible choices. That's growth. It feels weird. Growth usually does. But mostly I don't think about it anymore. Not every day anyway. I've started dating again, cautiously. I went on a first date about 8 months after the trial ended. Nice guy, met through friends. Over coffee, he asked about my last relationship. It ended badly, I said. How bad? He stole from me, a lot. It went to court. I watched his face for judgment. For the moment when he'd decide I was too much drama, too complicated, not worth the trouble. Instead, he said, "That must have been really hard. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm still pretty guarded about money stuff and trust. Fair warning." That makes sense. Anyone would be. It didn't work out with him, different life goals. But that conversation taught me something. The right person wouldn't make me feel damaged for having boundaries, wouldn't call my caution paranoia, wouldn't mistake self-protection for lack of faith. I watch for red flags I wouldn't have noticed before. I listen to my instincts instead of dismissing them. When something feels off, I don't talk myself out of that feeling anymore. Some people probably think I'm paranoid now. My therapist calls it discernment. There's a difference between being closed off and being careful, she said. You're learning to be careful. That's healthy. Sometimes I worry I'll never trust anyone again. Do you trust your friend? Your parents? Your coworkers? Yes. So you can trust. You're just more selective about who earns it. That's not damage. That's wisdom. Therapy helped more than I expected. Having a space to process it all without judgment. To understand that what happened wasn't about my worth or intelligence. It was about his choices, his character, his willingness to harm someone for money. That took longer to internalize than I'd like to admit. Part of me still wants to rewrite history, find the moment where if I'd just been smarter, paid more attention, asked better questions, I could have avoided all of this. You're doing it again, my therapist will say when I spiral that direction. You're taking responsibility for someone else's decision to deceive you. Their choices are not your fault. But I chose to trust him. Trust is not a character flaw. Being trustworthy is a virtue. Exploiting trust is the crime. You didn't commit the crime. My dad never said I told you so, even though I'm sure he'd had concerns from the beginning. One Sunday dinner, months after everything ended, he said something that stuck with me. You know what I'm proud of? What? You saw the problem and you dealt with it. You didn't make excuses for him. You didn't minimize what he did. You protected yourself. That takes strength. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like I barely survived. Surviving is strength. Protecting yourself when someone you love is hurting you, that's real strength. A lot of people can't do it. My friends were supportive in that careful way people are when they don't know quite what to say. But they showed up. They sat with me on bad days. They celebrated small victories on good days. They treated me normally, which was exactly what I needed. My coworkers who knew what happened treated me normally too. No pitying looks, no gossip. Just the same professional respect they'd always shown. My boss pulled me aside once. If you need time, take it. If you need adjusted hours while dealing with court stuff, we'll make it work. Just let me know what you need. Thank you, really. But I think work is the only place I feel normal right now. I'd rather keep coming in. Doors always open if that changes. It helped having that stability. Having something in my life that hadn't been touched by his lies. I've started dating again, cautiously. I watch for red flags I wouldn't have noticed before. I listen to my instincts instead of dismissing them. Some people probably think I'm paranoid now. I call it learning. Therapy helped. Understanding that what happened wasn't about my worth or intelligence. It was about his choices, his character, his willingness to harm someone for money. My dad never said I told you so. My friends were supportive. My coworkers who knew treated me normally, which was exactly what I needed. A year after everything ended, I ran into the other woman at a grocery store. We made eye contact across the produce section. For a moment, I thought one of us would leave. Instead, she walked over. "I'm sorry," she said, "for my part in everything. I should have questioned more. I should have said something." "Why didn't you?" "Because I believed him when he said you didn't matter. Because I wanted to believe I was special, and you were the fake one. It was easier to see you as the obstacle than to see him as the liar." We talked for maybe 15 minutes. Two people who'd been manipulated by the same person, comparing notes on his lies, the way he'd kept us separated and suspicious of each other. When we parted ways, we didn't exchange numbers. We just wished each other well and meant it. 2 years after sentencing, his probation officer called. He'd violated the no-contact order by creating a fake profile to view my social media. They asked if I wanted to press charges. "No," I said, "I'm done being connected to this." The last I heard, he was working retail and living with his parents. The felony record made finding good jobs difficult. He'd tried to have the conviction expunged. The judge denied it. As for me, I'm okay. Not perfect, not undamaged, but okay. I kept the car. I'm more careful now about money, trust, who I let into my life. Some people would call it walls. I call it learning. He's out there somewhere, living with his choices. I'm here, living with mine. I chose self-respect over a comfortable lie, even when it was the harder choice. I still have the recording from that afternoon at the resort. Sometimes late at night, when I start wondering if I overreacted, I listen to the first 30 seconds, just long enough to hear his voice with that casual cruelty. Then I turn it off, reminded of exactly why I made the choices I did. I'm someone who noticed, someone who questioned, someone who chose to protect myself, and that's enough.